Thousands of children in Ontario depend on children's aid societies, but the numbers have dropped over the past several years. Contributing to that drop are changes to the rules around the adoption of kids in foster care. Let's find out more about the situation from Pat Convery. She's Executive Director of the Adoption Council of Ontario. Really good to have you here.
Thank you.
Can I just get you to start by, we just had that discussion 4 years ago about state of play back then. What's changed most significantly since then?
Okay, so that just after that show was when the government announced an ability for kids who were Crown wards and who had an access order to parents to be adopted, which freed up essentially 7,000 children at that time. Purpose of which was to increase the number of kids who could be adopted, but also maintain their connections with their birth family. Most recently, in September, the ministry announced some increased supports for permanency for children, which were increased in targeted subsidies, so subsidies for families who do adopt children, particularly older children, sibling groups, to be able to meet some of the special needs that those children have, as well as some post-adoption support programs, funding of that, and then some increases around kids who are staying in foster care, some of the older children, for those foster parents to be able to keep them and offer them those family supports for a longer period of time.
Okay, let's unpack some of this then. Why were kids with access to birth family members previously not allowed to be adopted?
Well, they were allowed to be adopted, but there was a legal process that had to happen to terminate the access order before they could be adopted. That's actually still the case, but what the new legislation allowed was for it not to be a barrier to adoption.
Oh, okay.
So children could be placed for adoption. You still have to deal with that access and turn it into an openness order. So it was recognizing that it's important. We want children to maintain those connections, and so changing the process to make it more likely that a child could still have a family, have an adoptive family, and their birth family connection.
Okay, let's talk money. The financial ceiling on help for Crown wards used to be age 18. Now it's age 21?
21.
Why the
yes.
change?
Again, because we recognize that at the age of 18, many kids are in the foster care system, don't have their grade 12. They still have a need for ongoing supports available to them. So in terms of the foster care, the youth leaving care hearings talked about let's raise that to 21 at least, and in some cases 24. The government also recognized that that becomes a disincentive for adoption, in the sense that families need supports as well, or a youth who has to decide, do I become adopted or do I stay in care and get this extra support? So the government recognized we need to put some supports in place because those families are still dealing with and helping and supporting those children.
Given a deficit in the province of Ontario that's north of $10 billion, are you surprised they came through this way?
No, I think the government recognizes how important this is. So the case has been made for the ROI, return on investment. I think that in your last session they talked a little bit about that. Now they're recognizing that the return on relationship is equally important.
Return on relationship,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, ROR, because kids need families, and we're looking at families for adults as much as for children. So right now we have 6,300 Crown wards. 3,700 of those are over the age of 12. Those are the kids most at risk of aging out of care, and we need to find them families, and those families are going to need support long into their 20s. As we know, our kids aren't leaving home at 18 anymore.
I don't know if you know these stats, but let me ask anyway. How many kids were adopted out of the foster system since the changes took place that you've described?
So we have between 750 and 950 children per year placed from the foster care system for adoption. About an equal number of those kids are going to be placed with kinship families as well, so another form of permanency for children.
So would the changes that have been made increase these numbers going forward, do you suspect?
Yes, it has increased.
It has increased
already?
Definitely
increased. We still have about 1,000 kids every year that are going to age out of foster care. So we still have a little bit of work to do in that.
1,000 kids, eh?
About, yeah. Again, we don't keep our stats as well, but we know just in terms of those kids over the age of 12 moving towards 18 and the number of kids we've placed for adoption over, say, 15, 16, we know that there's a disconnect there. So.
Sure. Let me ask you the more philosophical overarching question, which is what's the ultimate goal of the foster system?
So the goal of foster care is clear. It's when children can't live with their birth families, foster care allows them to have a family environment while the child welfare system tries to sort out what is their permanency plan. Either let's fix the problems that happen in the birth family so they can go back home, let's find somebody in their extended family who can take them and give them that permanence they need, or let's move them to adoption, find an adoptive family.
And is it your preference to have children adopted out of the foster care system?
Absolutely. Foster care is a great system, but it has an expiry date. And so we do believe that families shouldn't have an expiry date. And the way to do that is when foster families are able to adopt, which these supports will allow, is a great way. And if not, let's find a family that can be there for life for a child.
We mentioned earlier that the financial assistance that the government of Ontario provides now lasts until age 21 instead of age 18. But can you give us a better sense about what kind of support is out there for families that do want to provide foster care?
Yeah, so for adoptive families, again, recognizing the need for older children to have families, the targeted subsidy the government now offers, and this is a go-forward basis, is children over the age of 8 or sibling groups adopted from foster care are eligible for a targeted subsidy for families who make, and it was $85,000, it's going up to $94,000 as their joint annual income. It's about $1,000 a month.
The subsidy is $1,000 a month.
Subsidy about $1,000 a month per child. Previously, it ended at the age of 18, but the new plan going forward will be that will be in place till children turn 21.
And does the money actually go to the kid or to the family?
To the family. Yeah, so it's to support, and again, you can even, as an example, you're adopting a 16-year-old, your hope is going to be able to support that child to go to post-secondary education, but you only have 2 years now to open up an RESP. So even just thinking of those supports that you haven't had a whole lifetime to plan for that child.
Now, $1,000 is better than nothing, but what percentage of the cost of actually raising that child and having that child be part of your family does that actually pick up?
What it's going to pick up is those extra supports, tutoring, counseling, special programs that are benefit post-secondary education. So you still need to be able to manage the cost of the child. So it's certainly, it's not going to pay for your mortgage for the room, those things, but it's definitely a huge support for the families.
People don't do this for the money anyway, do they?
No,
they don't.
No, exactly. And foster parents don't either. I think that's the piece that is allowing more foster parents to adopt those children that they know they would like to have as part of their family for life too.
Gotcha. Pat, thanks very much for this.
You're welcome.
Pat Convery, Executive Director, Adoption Council of Ontario.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit supporttvo.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.